All right, good morning. My name is Matt Smith. I am the Director of Offshore Wind for the Hampton Roads Alliance. The Alliance is the regional economic development organization that represents the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. Welcome you to the May version of our CVOW Friday Forum. These forums are a series of webinars that we do in partnership with Dominion Energy to talk about issues in offshore wind and the CVOW project. So typically, we have focused on a particular item within the offshore wind industry to help businesses become aware of what they need to do to take part in the industry. But today we've taken a little bit of a different approach to our CVOW Friday Forum, and we're going to step back a little bit and look at kind of the state of the industry in Virginia. It's been about 2 years, almost exactly, since the passage of the Virginia Clean Economy Act. So we thought it would be appropriate to step back and take a look at where we've come in those 2 years since that really monumental legislation was passed. So before we get started, just want to address a couple of housekeeping items. We really encourage this to be an interactive forum. So if you hover over the bottom of your screen there, you can pull up a Q&A function. We encourage you to post questions that we will attempt to answer in the Q&A box. We prefer that you use the Q&A box instead of the chat box, and then we can post potential answers to your questions in that chat box. So before we get going to start off with today's forum, I do want to introduce our panelists here that we have that will be helping us talk about the state of the industry very briefly. We'll start off with the presentation and come back to those panelists, but we have Brian Donahue from the City of Portsmouth, Mallory Butler from the City of Newport News, and Mike Hopkins from the Miller Group and Fairwinds Landing. So with that, if you bear with me for just a second, I'm going to share my screen and go through a presentation to kind of address some of these topics and achievements that we've seen over the last 2 years. Right. So as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the state of the industry from the Virginia Clean Economy Act to where we are today. And this, again, I can't really understate the importance of this legislation in allowing Virginia to really help achieve its goals around renewable energy and particularly in offshore wind. So for today's presentation, the two things that are most important to know about the act are that it requires Virginia to produce 100% of its electricity from carbon-free sources by 2050. Very ambitious goal when it was passed at the time. It also requires the development of 5.2 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2035. And so that's really what we're here to talk about today. And that provision of the law is really why Virginia is in the game in offshore wind. If you don't have projects, you really aren't a player in the industry. And so with the passages of this act, we've really gotten Virginia in the game. And that game is really significant. It represents a $100 billion potential revenue stream for companies in the offshore wind industry. So in the possibility of 50,000 to 80,000 new jobs. So you can really say that the Virginia Clean Economy Act was our avenue into this opportunity in the industry. So significant that legislation was passed to get to this place we are now. So I'll go through kind of what's happened since the passage of the Clean Economy Act in chronological order. So after that, in the fall of 2020, we saw the operation of the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Pilot Project start. Really significant milestone for the industry. Soon we'll have thousands of turbines off of the coast of the East Coast. But right now, we only have 2 turbines in federal waters, and those 2 are the pilot project turbines that Dominion Energy built and they began operating and producing power in 2020. So really significant milestone for the industry. And really in those 2 years, it kind of shows how far we've come, and that those two turbines combined are 12 megawatt two 6 megawatt turbines producing 12 megawatts of power. And the commercial project will have turbines that produce almost 15 megawatts of power apiece. So the industry is really progressing quickly in terms of technology. And those turbines do provide power to the grid now. They power up to 3,000 homes. So other events that were important that happened in the fall of 2020 include the establishment of the MidAtlantic Wind Training Alliance. We know that workforce development is going to be a very critical aspect of the success of the industry, and we'll need skilled workers that are able to work on and offshore. And so former Governor Northam announced the creation of the MidAtlantic Wind Training Alliance in the fall of 2020. It's a consortium of 3 community and technical colleges and now the Department of Energy, the New College Institute, the Mid-Atlantic Maritime Academy, and Centura College. So those organizations will be providing and already are providing specific offshore wind training called CVOW training, along with other training of skills that workers will need to have to participate in the industry regarding maritime certifications and skilled trades training. So very important aspect of the industry. I'll say in addition to these entities, other academic institutions are providing training and are a big part of this space, including Tidewater Community College. So also in the fall of 2020, the governors of Maryland, North Carolina, and Virginia announced the signing of the Smart Power Memorandum of Understanding between these 3 states, which was really a significant accomplishment among our states and sent a strong message to the industry. Basically, the MOU states that our 3 states will collaborate to promote and develop offshore wind off of our coast. And this really excited the industry because the competition between states has been seen by the industry as kind of stemming the potential development of the supply chain, in knowing that not every state is going to get every piece of the supply chain. And so the more that we can work together, the faster that we can kind of grow that pie. And so the MOU is helping us do that. There's work to be done to put some more kind of concrete measures behind it. But an important thing and something I think that our 3 states can build on to grow the industry in our region. So moving on to December of 2020 was a very kind of consequential month for offshore wind in Virginia. You see here on the slide that the keel for Charybdis was laid in December of 2020. So Charybdis is the Jones Act compliant wind turbine installation vessel that Dominion Energy is building, which is really significant for the industry and for Virginia. There will be, a variety of specialized vessels that will be needed to build out the industry, and many of them don't exist yet in the United States. So having this wind turbine installation vessel ready for the industry, but having it based in Hampton Roads is a really important milestone for the offshore wind industry. And there were also some other project development milestones, specifically around Dominion Energy's CVOW project and Avangrid Renewables Kitty Hawk offshore wind project. So we like to claim these as kind of Virginia projects. At least they will be making interconnections into the grid in Virginia. But they're significant for a number of reasons. There'll be 2 of the larger projects along the coast of the US together. They will, of the 30 gigawatts, they'll represent about 15% of the 30 gigawatts that we're targeting to build out by 2030. And both of these projects filed their construction and operations plan in December of 2020. And that's significant because that's the plan that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management will review and ultimately issue their record of decision on, so that these projects can begin construction. So those plans are under review now by BOEM. And so we know what the economic impact of these projects is going to be, and it's significant. So just in the construction phase of the projects, you see that in total, they'll create about 1,700 jobs. And then through their lifespan, there'll be about 2,000 permanent jobs associated with these projects. But that's really just a fraction of what we hope to achieve in Hampton Roads, in that we feel like we're very well positioned to become and already are becoming one of the hubs of the industry. And a study that the Alliance conducted in partnership with Mangum Economics indicated that we could see the creation of over 5,000 jobs if we were to become a supply chain hub for the industry. So moving to 2021, saw the creation of the Virginia Offshore Wind Landing by 3 partners: the Hampton Roads Alliance, the Virginia Department of Energy, and ODU's Open Seas Technology Innovation Hub. And so this was a really important kind of development for growth of the industry in Hampton Roads. It provides companies that are interested in establishing a presence in Hampton Roads some physical space, also a way to get connected to resources and stakeholders that can help them do business in Virginia. I think we're going to actually have the opportunity to expand the landing later this year or maybe early next year. And we're seeing growing memberships. We have over 20 members of the landing right now. And these are some of the really the most significant players in the offshore wind industry that will be helping build out the supply chain in the US. So really a great kind of business attraction opportunity for our region, but also a good way for these partners to work together to help grow the industry. So in the late summer of 2021, we were very lucky to have the Business Network for Offshore Wind host the largest offshore wind conference in North America in Richmond that year. And so we really wanted to take advantage of that opportunity to get the industry to our state. Had a very successful conference in Richmond, but probably even more importantly, the Hampton Roads Alliance and our partners hosted a good number, about 20 representatives of major companies in the offshore wind industry in Hampton Roads for the weekend before IPF. So we were really able to give these industry leaders a close look at our region and what we can provide the industry. There was a series of successful events you can see down there at the bottom of your screen. The former Governor Northam and Representative Luria and Scott were able to join us for an opening reception. So it was a really good event to make sure that Hampton Roads was recognized as a player in the offshore wind industry. And then coming to the end of 2021, we really saw some announcements that signaled that Virginia and Hampton Roads were developing into an offshore wind hub. And a lot of that is because of some of this infrastructure that you see there on your screen, this aerial of the Port of Virginia. And some of these announcements were made because of these advantages that we have, particularly around port infrastructure, terminal facilities, and our workforce. And so a number of those announcements were focused around the Port of Virginia's Portsmouth Marine Terminal, and its use by Dominion Energy and Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy. So very fortunate to have Brian Donahue from the city of Portsmouth here with us today. So I will wait to talk about the details of this property with him and the significance of what's going on there during our Q&A section of the event. So that takes us to kind of what we're going to see moving forward. And there's a lot of things to be excited about in the industry in Virginia and in our nearby states moving forward. Not the least of which is that the number of projects being developed off of our coast isn't static. You know, we don't just have 2 projects, or there are 20 or so projects being developed up and down the East Coast. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is in the process of identifying new lease areas, which will turn into new projects, which will in turn lead to more opportunity for our region. So really important that these processes are happening and will really allow us to have an industry that is sustained over the long term. And so these lease areas are being refined right now and will go to auction in 2023. And you all may have seen the news earlier this week that lease areas off the coast of Wilmington were auctioned on Wednesday and were won by Duke Energy and Total. So important events that are really helping us grow the industry along the East Coast. Something else that we'll be looking forward to later this summer, Dominion announced late last year who their major suppliers were for the CVOW project. And they're in the process right now of identifying scopes of work that these companies will want to source in Virginia and in Hampton Roads. And we'll work with them to communicate those opportunities out to businesses in Virginia. So this will be a really tangible opportunity for Virginia businesses to become a part of the CVOW project. We're looking forward to partnering with Dominion Energy to get information about those opportunities out to the business community. So look out for more about that later this summer, most likely. And this is just a list of some of the opportunities that will be available. And it's everything from technical aspects of engineering to the fact that, all the vessels that come in and out of our port are going to need hospitality and catering services. So opportunities for a variety of businesses in the region and in the Commonwealth. And another exciting announcement, hopefully you all have read about this in the Virginia Pilot newspaper and elsewhere, but the development of another property directly across the harbor from Portsmouth Marine Terminal is called Fairwinds Landing. This is a nationally significant property, again, for the offshore wind industry. And we also have with us, as I introduced, Mike Hopkins with the Miller Group, who is leading the redevelopment of this property. So he'll be able to tell us about their plans and visions for Fairwind Landing. So I'm excited to hear about that a little bit later this morning. We're also really getting some interest from the industry as a kind of a maritime logistics center. So the East Coast really hasn't had the need for this type of operation because we don't have any type of offshore industry on the East Coast, unlike we do in the Gulf Coast with the oil and gas industry. So the companies that own vessels and need to charter them are really seeing Hampton Roads as a place where a lot of the support services for the industry can be based. So we're working on ways that we can take advantage of that. And really, so those things come together to really kind of craft our vision that we see in that offshore wind can become a kind of a fourth pillar of our maritime industrial base in Virginia, along with the Navy and the Port of Virginia and our shipbuilding and ship repair industry. So excited about that. And then finally, I will close. I want to recognize some of the important partners we've been working with, our Virginia offshore wind team, to get to where we are over these 2 years and beyond. Many of these people have been working on offshore wind for far longer than that, up to 10 or 15 years. So they're an important part of what we're doing in the industry. And I think it really, the partnership among these entities really makes Virginia stand out among our peers that want to be in the industry, and that we have resources from a variety of groups, public and private sector, that can provide companies the resources they need to do business in Virginia. And they include the Alliance, Virginia Department of Energy, Virginia Economic Development Partnership, our developers, the Virginia Maritime Association, the Port of Virginia, and just a breadth of entities that really provide expertise, and ultimately, representatives of the localities where this industry will land, the cities and counties of Hampton Roads. So important work by all of these partners in the industry. And again, IPF has been a place where our partners have come together to demonstrate that collaboration to the industry. A group of about 20 of us recently attended the IPF conference in Atlantic City, New Jersey, late in April. Another great show for Virginia. We had a large booth there that a lot of people stopped by and got to learn about the state. And we were also able to meet with offshore wind cluster delegations from 3 foreign countries and introduce them to the stakeholders and businesses in Virginia that were at IPF. So it was an exciting event. And then I'll finally finish up here with some of the activities that the Alliance and our partners are working on. I mentioned the Virginia Offshore Wind Landing. We're looking to continue to leverage that particularly as a way to promote innovation in the industry. One of our partners, Open Seas, and their director, Jerry Cronin, is leading a challenge event that we're doing. We ask members of the landing to help us identify problems facing the industry, and are going to run a challenge to help address those problems, with the ultimate goal of coming up with a solution to help the industry move forward. We're also working with legislators that have placed some funding in the state budget to help companies transition into the offshore wind industry. So if you're a company that is doing something that may be related to offshore wind, but you need funding for training or certification or equipment, there is hopefully, with the resolution of the budget, will be some money there for you to help do that. And then we really continue to emphasize the fact that connections need to be made between higher tier offshore wind companies and the local supply chain. There's a desire for that to happen on both sides, from those companies and from the supply chain. And so we're working on some kind of digital and more traditional tools to help facilitate those relationships. And then we have just a full schedule of business development activities at the Alliance, both with facilitating existing businesses getting into the industry, and also trying to attract businesses to Hampton Roads. So we'll be in Europe, in Canada, conferences all over the US, talking to companies that could contribute to the growth of the industry in the region. And so with that, I will close this presentation now and move over to our panel, and I'll check real quick to see if we have any questions that have come up. And so before we move on to this panel, I have a question here that has asked, are the pilot projects producing as expected? Any learnings from their initial production? And so we don't have a representative from Dominion Energy on the panel today, but I have spoken to them, and I will, very in an inexpert way, but express what I've heard from them, in that the pilot projects are actually producing more energy than was expected. So that's something that has informed how they're going forward with the commercial projects. So that's a very positive development in the industry. So good news on the pilot projects. I will move on to our Q&A period and let each of our panelists quickly introduce themselves. I'll start here with Brian. If you want to introduce yourself, please, to the audience.
Great. Well, good morning, Matt, and to all of the attendees. Thank you for having us participate in the forum. Always appreciate the opportunity to share all of the exciting things that are happening around offshore wind in the region. And certainly we have a lot of that happening here in Portsmouth. I'm the Interim Director of Economic Development for the City of Portsmouth. And you know, offshore wind is something that we're really focusing on. Very excited about the opportunity to diversify our local economy. And I think we've got a lot of assets, which we'll talk about this morning. So I want to thank you for having us.
Thanks, Brian. Go ahead, Mallory.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Mallory Butler. I'm with the City of Newport News Department of Development. I've been in economic development in the Hampton Roads area for over 30 years and have worked for several of the localities as well as the Alliance's predecessor. Very interested in this new emerging industry. Having been around the block a few times in Hampton Roads, it's exciting to see us really diversify and capture a new industry for our region. I'm engaged and involved in the offshore wind piece because I want to support the country and, more importantly, Virginia's outlined clean economy efforts for renewable energy. And of course, capture a piece of that $100 billion industry for Virginia and the region and Newport News. And then, you know, at the end of the day, and we'll talk about this a little more, see to it that Newport News's businesses and that the city of Newport News has a role and takes its share of being part of that supply chain for this new industry.
Oops. Thank you, Mallory. Mike, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Hopkins. I'm with Fairwinds Landing. We are a new entity that was created to develop the Lambert's Point Docks project we have. My role is right now is make it all happen. Wearing a lot of different hats. We're part of a larger group of companies in the Hampton Roads area that are owned by Jerry Miller. We're associated with the Miller Group, which is a real estate development company. Valley Core Construction and Trident Civil, which also do construction, and then Fairlead, which is a defense contractor focused on the maritime aspects of the federal government Navy focus. We believe all those kind of core competencies brought together at a Lambert's Point project for offshore wind, defense, and logistics can really provide a big benefit to the overall region and developing the economy with offshore wind and all the key pillars for what drive the business in this area.
Thanks, Mike. We really look forward to talking with you more about Fairwinds Landing in detail and hearing about your vision for that property. So we'll start off. We've had a lot of interest in Portsmouth Marine Terminal and its development for the offshore wind industry. So I'll start off with a question that I'm going to pose to Brian. That Portsmouth Marine Terminal is being developed as one of the nation's preeminent offshore wind terminals. Please describe what will occur at PMT, its significance to the city of Portsmouth, and its potential to be an anchor for the offshore wind supply chain in Hampton Roads.
Well, Matt, thanks for the opportunity to lead off here. I really can't emphasize enough just how significant what is occurring at PMT is to the industry and really what it means for the region overall and the Commonwealth. This is really kind of a once in a generation opportunity, I think, that we have before us. So the fact that it's occurring in Portsmouth, we're really very fortunate for that. It's really been the first domino to drop, I would say, for project announcements in the industry and really what's happening and the potential to happen in the future here in Hampton Roads. So, it's certainly not the last either. But I think a lot of folks were really waiting for that first project to be announced in order to determine kind of, well, is this actually happening and where is the industry going from here? So PMT was that really first announcement. And it's driven a lot of interest in the region from, operators in the industry, both nationally and internationally. So, we've been really pleased with the fact that, obviously that's happening here in Portsmouth and it's drawing that attention to Hampton Roads overall. But speaking specifically on Portsmouth, we're fortunate enough to host two of the Port of Virginia's 5 marine terminals here in the city, which includes Virginia International Gateway, and then, of course, the Portsmouth Marine Terminal, which we're talking about this morning. The port's been a great partner for us here locally and in Hampton Roads, and they've really driven our economy for years with the logistics and distribution sector of our economy. So now we're really working with the port directly as a partner to begin transitioning to diversify for this entirely new industry, which is really something that doesn't happen very often. But fortunately, they had the foresight and the ability to expand with infrastructure improvements at some of their other terminals, including a BIG and Norfolk International Terminal over the last 5+ years. And they've been able to increase their capacities at those facilities. And that allowed for PMT really to transition from handling cargo to then begin focusing on supporting, the Commonwealth's efforts to move towards a clean economy with renewable energy and really fostering offshore wind here in the Commonwealth and specifically Hampton Roads. So beginning in January of 2020, the port reached an agreement with Ørsted, a Denmark-based company. I think that's well known and regarded in the offshore wind industry for the leasing of some acreage at PMT for staging materials and equipment to support Dominion's pilot project, the first 2 turbines that were installed off the coast of Virginia. And now Ørsted has continued utilizing that space for projects up and down the East Coast. Their initial agreement allowed for approximately 2 acres of the 287-acre terminal to be leased. And they have the ability to go up to 40 acres there. And I appreciate you pulling up the aerial. I think that's helpful to see the layout of the terminal and really how significant it is in terms of a facility and the ability to support offshore wind operations. So you'll see there on the right side of the screen is the piece of the terminal that Ørsted has control and access to. So that was really the first announcement there in 2020, which created a lot of energy around PMT. And then speaking of energy, Dominion Energy in August of 21 reached an agreement with the port to allow for Dominion to lease 72 acres of the terminal. And Dominion will be using its portion of the terminal as a staging and pre-assembly area for the foundations and the wind turbines that will be installed for the CVOW project. So Dominion has a 10-year initial term for leasing that area at PMT, and then they have a couple additional 5-year terms. So they have a long-term presence, obviously, and commitment at PMT for some time, and we'll have a lot of operations being staged there, which will include the installation vessel that you had in your presentation earlier, Charybdis, which is currently under construction and expected to be completed by the end of 2023. That vessel will operate out of PMT with its crew of 150 members during the CVOW project and then potentially thereafter. So very interesting to see what Dominion is doing in terms of their investments and certainly then their presence here at Portsmouth Marine Terminal, which will begin in late 2023 and then heavily in 2024 when installation of CVOW is scheduled to begin. The most recent announcement and one that's a little bit different is Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy has announced back in October of 21 that they will be leasing 80 acres, essentially the rest of the available space at PMT, for the establishment of the first offshore wind turbine blade production facility in the U.S. So this was really, really huge news for Hampton Roads, for Portsmouth, and really the industry that Siemens Gamesa was going to be making this investment in the U.S. And initially, their turbines will be arriving from Europe unfinished. They will be coated and finished here in Portsmouth prior to going out for installation. Dominion, as it's fairly well known, has selected Siemens Gamesa as its partner for the CVOW project, so they will be supplying turbine blades to Dominion. And we're optimistic that as the industry grows, Siemens will be growing here in terms of their presence, and that the facility that they will be developing here will transition to an actual blade manufacturing facility when demand increases here domestically. So very, very excited about this and what it means for the industry in the region as well. So what we're really talking about in terms of economic investment to Portsmouth and the region is that when it's completed with the operations and maintenance activities that will be occurring out of Portsmouth Marine Terminal, we're looking at 310 new jobs. 50 of those will primarily be related to the service side of supporting the CVOW project. And we're also talking about a significant investment in the neighborhood of $200 million, which includes investments for buildings and equipment there at PMT that Siemens will be making. So really a very major project, and certainly being in an entirely new industry, I think it's something that everybody has been waiting to see, you know, where these types of investments will be made. And the fact that it's occurring here in Portsmouth and Hampton Roads, I think is really signaling that we are a hub for offshore wind. And, you know, the intent is for this to support not just regional projects here in Virginia and North Carolina, but also you know, projects up and down the East Coast. So very, very you know, fortunate for the fact that we have this facility here in Hampton Roads, that the port has made it available for the industry, and certainly that it's happening here in Portsmouth.
All right. Thank you, Brian, for that fantastic explanation of what's going on at Portsmouth Marine Terminal. I think you hit on some really key points in that it is, I think, one of the first dominoes to fall in helping us grow our industry in Hampton Roads. Really see that as being an anchor that other parts of the supply chain can build around. So we're very excited about that. And also the fact that it is such a significant investment by a global leader in offshore wind and Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy. I think it validates a lot of what we think about what our region can provide to the industry as a whole. So excited to see the development of that terminal. It's going to be happening very quickly to get ready to support the construction of the CVOW project and others. And so you can, as you drive by on the interstate, can watch the progress of the development of that terminal. So appreciate that explanation again. We're going to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about kind of existing businesses. And I'm going to have a question for Mallory about that. And really, the cities and counties of Hampton Roads are diverse in character and assets. And that's, I think, a great benefit to our region for a lot of different purposes, especially regarding offshore wind. But Mallory, please explain the opportunities Newport News sees in the offshore wind industry and how your city plans to take advantage of them.
Thank you, Matt. Be delighted to talk a little bit about that. As we've discussed, this is a new emerging industry for the US, for the East Coast, for the Mid-Atlantic, for Virginia and Hampton Roads. So first and foremost, we're taking the tack that we need to educate our business base. We need to let them know this opportunity is coming. And we're doing that in a number of ways. First and foremost, we partnered up with the Alliance during the pre-conference events last year when Virginia hosted the largest collection of experts in offshore wind. We pitched a matchmaking session that the Alliance was hosting to our existing businesses to say, come and talk to those already in this space, learn a little bit about what they do, how they do it, and what their needs are. And we had, I believe, 2 companies participate in that morning session. And it was a great opportunity for those businesses to hear firsthand what's needed and how they might play a role as this industry develops. We're also working closely with the Alliance's VP for Business Retention, Toy Hunter. She and I have developed a target list of Newport News businesses that fall into those categories that Matt listed of suppliers and providers of services for this industry. And we are going out over the course of the year to talk to those businesses one-on-one. And again, start with the tack of explaining to them what this new industry is, how it's going to develop, and the fact that there's $100 billion on the table, and they need to, participate in capturing a little bit of that for their bottom line. We know that, and you've seen it with the list of vendors that have been, or suppliers that Dominion's already selected for the CVOW project, that the first and probably second tier suppliers are going to come from those already in this space. the European companies that have been doing this successfully offshore for decades. But those companies may need a presence domestically, like the ones that are going to be at PMT. Their suppliers who are coming from Europe may need a presence and may not need a waterfront site. And so we know that we have opportunities to host those companies in buildings and sites in Newport News. We also have opportunities, we believe, going forward to marry those companies up with some of our existing companies, perhaps for joint ventures to do production domestically with partnerships. And then ultimately, as this industry develops, we believe there are opportunities for our companies to become direct suppliers and vendors for this industry as it grows over the next 10, 20 years. So that's why we're in this space. That's a little bit about what we're doing. And it all goes back to educating the existing businesses and industries to know that this is a new industry that they can get a piece of.
Thanks, Mallory. That was, I think, a great way to highlight one of the important assets that we have in the region and the businesses that are here that can participate in the industry. I think that is something that is desired by the higher level companies. They want to partner with local companies for a multitude of reasons, and not the least of which is that ultimately, if we move the supply chain more from Europe to the United States, not only will we be creating jobs here, but we'll be bringing down the cost of future projects, which will lead to even more projects and new opportunities in the future. So having that really deep bench of companies that can participate in the industry is important. So I'm glad you were able to help explain that to our audience here today. And so I'm going to move over to Mike. I know everybody is very excited to hear about the development of Fairwinds Landing, and so I'll give Mike, I'm gonna give you a minute to pull up your screen here while I prompt you with this question and a little bit about what we hope to see there. But the offshore wind industry faces numerous challenges to meet the ambitious goals set by states and the federal government. And I think number one among them are the lack of terminal facilities that can support project construction and manufacturing activities. So you're responsible for the development of Fairwinds Landing into this maritime operations and logistics hub for the offshore wind industry and the defense industry. So I hope you can tell us a little bit about the property, its significance, and your vision for what Fairwinds Landing can become. So go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Matt. So Lambert's Point is a property that's owned by Norfolk Southern. As you may have seen in the press recently, Fairwinds Landing entered into a long-term lease with Norfolk Southern, 30-year lease for the entire 111 acres. Historically, the property's been used as a break bulk marine terminal that was used in conjunction with Norfolk Southern's rail business. But with the advent of containerization over the last 30 years or whatever, it really kind of fell into an underutilized state. And so there was, push by Norfolk Southern to look at other potential uses. And so we came in with a vision to transform that property, which we view as kind of a diamond in the rough, to some of the support some of the pillars we see of the Hampton Roads economy going into the future. That being, the offshore wind, we're starting with a clean slate with a huge opportunities there. The defense industry with the, supporting the shipbuilding aspect of it as the capacity at places like Newport News. Shipbuilding is constrained, and they have, these huge aircraft carrier and submarine projects all coming together at once. And then the more traditional transportation and logistics, business that Hampton Roads is great for because of its natural benefits of its harbor and the like. So with this property here, this is more or less orientated north to south. But right across the river to the west is Portsmouth Marine Terminal. I think that is a very significant advantage to the property and to the region. with this 111 acres combined with the Portsmouth Marine Terminal 287, we have nearly 400 acres that can be devoted to supporting offshore wind. I think goes a huge way of creating that critical mass to support this region being a hub for offshore wind. The property itself has many great natural characteristics. 111 acres, as I mentioned before, of relatively available capacity. A lot of waterfront properties today don't have that availability. We have 3 piers totaling about 6,000 linear square feet of frontage, linear feet of frontage. The 2 bigger piers, as you can see to the north and the south, are about 1,200 feet long by 400. The middle pier is about 650 feet long. With the water depths there, they are 32 feet and bigger or higher, deeper. Close access to the, just going out to the channel in the Elizabeth River that will be dredged to 55 feet. We have over 1 million square feet of warehouse space in various conditions. We're not going to be keeping all of that warehouse space, but it's something we can work with right now. And we have more rail than I can even count. So from where it stands today, it's a great canvas to start creating a vision on. As I said, we're kind of focused on the 3 pillars. Offshore wind is going to probably drive it because they have the greatest demands for capability, and all those capabilities bode well for the other aspects of defense and transportation and logistics. Our vision is to, on this lower half of the property, lower 30 acres, is to have that focused on the operations and maintenance aspect of offshore wind. We believe that complements very well with PMT, with their marshaling and staging and the like. They don't have that capability there. So this is a great spot with the abundant pier space and some acreage to support probably most of the projects on in the Mid-Atlantic for operations and maintenance, because it's such a short jump out to the ocean. We are looking at having this warehouse on the Pier P, which is the southern pier, convert that into a flex use multi-tenant facility using, providing companies with that may need a smaller footprint with warehouse and office space on the pier to be able to conduct their maritime operations. We'll have laydown area and buildings to support the marine coordination of the offshore wind activities. So the other aspect, we're looking at almost every aspect of offshore wind, but the next aspect would be what we call kind of phase 2, which would be the remainder of the 80 acres or so of property. Because of the tremendous demands for very strong, weight capacities, we are looking at removing this middle pier and creating a quayside berth about 1,300 feet long between the 2 large piers that can support the types of weights and water depths that are required to move the big heavy components of the towers, the nacelles, the monopiles, or whatever kind of jacket foundations there may be. They probably require clearing out a lot of this property, strengthening it out, providing laydown area. But it's also, when you create that kind of capability to handle that heavy cargo, it opens up the door for another aspect that we're looking at is housing a OEM manufacturer of something like towers or transition pieces would be a preference. We believe that the rail access into the property is great for companies that need to have a lot of steel brought in. That can be done very economically. with the rail, connecting with companies in the area like the Nucor plant down in or facility down in North Carolina, or even further out in Kentucky, where they're building new steel plants out there. So that would probably either put that in the back or up on the northern part of the property. There's still a lot of things up in the air. We've talked to a lot of tenants. A lot of people have interest, but it's a little bit of a domino effect. That we're in this kind of conundrum where the industry needs the infrastructure to operate and construct the offshore farms, but the timing of the contracting makes it a little bit more challenging to invest in the infrastructure. So we're in a little bit of a chicken and the egg scenario here, and it gets a little bit more complicated when you have a long period to develop and heavy capital investments, and challenges from some of the northern states on throwing money at programs. But we're very, very bullish on this project. We think it's going to be great for the entire region, in Norfolk in particular. It can create a lot of jobs, and I think have a lot of ripple effects on other aspects in the second tier portions of it as well. So that's all I have for now.
That was absolutely plenty. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate kind of really getting a first look at what Fairwinds Landing can become, from the person responsible for its development. So I think the folks on the call certainly appreciated getting that early explanation of what can happen there. And we're very excited about what Fairwinds Landing can lend to the region in our effort to develop Hampton Roads as a hub, along with Portsmouth Marine Terminal, and I'll say along with other properties, both waterfront and elsewhere, that can contribute to really the building out of the supply chain from those kind of tier 1 or OEM companies down to companies that provide services or manufacture parts, and then ultimately could lead into what is happening at PMT and Fairwinds Landing. So we're really excited to see what you and your group are doing with that property, and are here. I know at the Alliance and Mallory and Brian and others in the region on our team are here to support you all as well. So we're very excited about that. So with our last couple of minutes, I'll go ahead, Mike.
I just want to, one of the reasons why we're very excited is because of all the, coordination that the entire region has done from an economic development standpoint. I mean, we've been getting, other, economic development authorities, providing us leads, even though we're in Norfolk, from Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, up in Newport News. I mean, we've already got waterfront facilities in Portsmouth, in Newport News, so we're very connected, and we're very happy that everybody's looking at this as a regional project. We're coordinating with the port on making sure our projects are complementary to each other. So I'm very excited about it being such a team effort, and thanks for everybody for that.
That's great, Mike, and I think it truly does express how much of a regional effort is going into developing this industry, and how we are able to work together in Hampton Roads to really take advantage of an opportunity when we see one. So it's a great illustration of how we can work together to do that. So I think I'll finish up by switching over to Brian for one more question. We haven't addressed any sort of workforce issues yet on the call. So I know that Portsmouth, like a lot of cities, Brian, places a strong emphasis on helping its residents prepare for successful careers. I mean, there are going to be a significant number of job opportunities created by the offshore wind industry. What are some of the initiatives underway in Portsmouth to help residents prepare for opportunities in skilled trades in offshore wind?
Great, thanks, Matt. I think it's well understood that industry is directly dependent upon workforce. And having access to ready and skilled labor, that's really essential. I think it's probably more evident now than ever as we've experienced some of the labor constraints that developed over the course of the pandemic, just how really essential workforce is to the economy, and having a available and ready workforce to that point. But one of the things we're doing here in Portsmouth, and I don't think it's really necessarily unique to the region, is that we've established a local workforce development initiative, which is our Portsmouth at Work Center. And that's something that our Economic Development Office established back in 2021. Basically, to summarize it, we assist in providing our residents with career training and pathway development for employment and upskilling for more sustainable careers. So we provide both soft skills and hard skill training through our office, both in-house and with our partners. And in most cases, these programs are provided at no cost to our residents. So that's something we've been doing for many industries over the last year plus. And we're now looking at how do we look to support the offshore wind industry as it comes to the region. So we've partnered with Dominion Energy, regional organizations such as the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, really working to identify the required trades for the industry and how they may be sourced here locally in the city of Portsmouth. In addition to that, we've been working with our higher education partners, so Tidewater Community College, which has a Portsmouth campus, and that includes a skilled trades academy, as well as Centura College and the MidAtlantic Maritime Academy, to really promote offshore wind opportunities and the training programs that are available to the community. So that's something that we've really been working to kind of get the message out and engaging with our citizens that this is an opportunity that is soon available to you, and how can you become prepared for it. Perhaps one of the most important things that we've been doing is engaging with our public school system to ensure that our students, first and foremost, are aware of the industry and the career opportunities that may exist for them here very soon. And we've had some early successes with that. One story that I'll share with you quickly is our career and technical education program here in Portsmouth. We've had a number of students who are dual enrolled at TCC Skilled Trades Center in their welding program. And recently, those participants were amongst a group of 45 other students from around the region, Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, that gathered for a tour of PMT, and also attended an offshore wind luncheon that was hosted by Wednesdays. And really the goal of that was to bring awareness, to the industry and to those students that there are career opportunities, and it was very well received. And I do think that it's something we'll be looking to do going forward as well, in partnership with other localities in the region. But I think the bottom line is we need to make the necessary workers for this industry, we need to make them aware of what's coming. And that's something that we're doing here in Portsmouth. I know it's happening elsewhere in the region, but making individuals aware of the opportunity that exists. It's economic opportunity, it's career opportunity, and it's really about engaging with our residents to making sure they're aware of what's coming.
Thanks, Brian. That's really an important piece of making the industry a success here in Hampton Roads and throughout the country, is to have the right types of workers and making sure they're aware of that opportunity and getting them the skills. And it's good to know that you all are doing that. at also a minimal cost to those residents as well. So really a great effort by the city of Portsmouth and partners and others in the region. So we've come to the end of our hour here. So I really want to thank our panelists for what I think was a great discussion about what's happening in the industry, what we can look forward to. So thank you, Mallory, Brian, and Mike. We have a lot I think that we can be proud of in Hampton Roads, and a lot that even more probably that we can look forward to in our development for the offshore wind industry here. So thanks to our audience for participating today, and we will see you at the next CVOW Friday Forum. Goodbye.